Okay, folks, we're going on an adventure, and it's going to require all of us to do this. And I'm going to start out with kind of how this is happening. There's different types of storytelling that I do. One type, which some people have seen me do, is the practiced story. And I'm going to start with an example of that, but we haven't got there yet. These talks that I've been giving for years in Ashland are where I start a story. So this will be the first time I've told this story tonight. And you are going to help. Because you'll either go to sleep or you'll wiggle a lot or something. And I'll learn from that. But there's a real big difference between a story that's highly practiced and a story that I'm extemporaneously unfolding right in front of you. I have lots of notes. Second, this is in a series of talks I've been giving. And it goes way back to the 90s and the 70s. I've been telling stories in this town for decades and decades. Helga nods her head. She'll witness for me. And some of the more recent ones, when I came back from South Africa. So I first want to give a great blessing to Mandiba, because I was there right after he was elected president. So I'm really full of his life right now and everything that has unfolded. It's really big. And when I came back from South Africa, I gave this talk, which we have on video, a slideshow, and that was really kind of one of my bigger talks I did in Ashland then. Then in 2009, I was at ScienceWorks. Some of you were there, and we talked about the ecological constraints and opportunities of the Bear Creek Basin. So I sort of laid out what we know about this place, because knowledge of place is so important to story and to base. And I had these different stones that I said, these are the stones of this place, these are the colors of this place, this is what this place is. So I laid that all out in 2009. Then in 2010, we were at CultureWorks, and there were like 100 and some odd people in the room, and it was awesome. It was really interesting. And I had some posters up, and we talked about what can we do now muddling towards frugality? What are our first steps? And one of the more favorite steps that got repeated back to me was promenade. That if we were real people who lived someplace, in the evening we'd get dressed up just a little bit and walk around the neighborhood and admire the flowers and say hi to people, you know? Right, yeah. So that's an example, a home-centered economy. So I talked about what that might look like. But what would it look like to live someplace? Then in 2011, it was at Peace House, and I did Winter Tales. That's the kind that you can wiggle behind you. And I talked about becoming indigenous to the Siskiyous, and I had all these crazy stories from the early 70s and from the 40s and the 50s of just how strange a place the Siskiyous are, and how many crazy people have come here and done interesting things, right? So that was fun. Then last year at ScienceWorks again, I did something called reverse scenario thinking, which was, you know, if you think really hard about, so what do we do next? And then what do we do? There's all these buts that come up. Oh, we can't do that. Oh, and we can't do that. So I short-circuited all that, and I said, look, we know how to do this. So let's imagine we already did it. Let's talk about what it looked like. What does it look like when we've done it, when it's been done? And then let's work back from there instead of trying to get there from here. And that's called reverse scenario thinking. It's not normal in your schooling, right? But it actually comes out of scenario practices. It's a process. It's like a brainstorming process. So I told this story about what this place could be. And one of the most important parts of that was the return of the salmon. Right? Once we have the salmon back, it's a big sign of success. And there's a lot that needs to be done before the salmon are running up the creeks regularly, several times a year. And I had a lot of other details with that. And so that was that talk. And then I also talked a little bit about a story I've been telling called The Circumnavigation of Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta is the center of origin for 12 different tribes around Mount Shasta, First Nations. And every one of these First Nations say, we came out of this spring, or that spring, or this glacier, or that cave. Very, very specific. And there's already, the Pacific Crest Trail comes out of the Sierras, it comes up onto the Pitt River, then it runs straight across to the Trinities and the Marbles, then it comes up and right on the Siskiyou Crest, and then it heads right back on the Siskiyou Crest. So to have a circumnavigation of Mount Shasta, there's only one set of trails that hasn't been connected, and that's through Goose Nest. That's to go from the Klamath River back up to the Pitt River. So there's just one section. And to do that whole pilgrimage all the way around Mount Shasta means you end up with a set of prayer beads, which consist of the woods, the stones, and the special parts of each of those tea houses that you stopped at in your trek all the way around Mount Shasta. So I told this whole story about getting in a dirigible in Portland and people coming here to do this pilgrimage and what it was like. So we kind of got that down. So tonight what I'm going to try to do is walk us through an entire year of festivals, work guilds, social arrangements with each other. What could that look like? How would that work? What would work on this landscape? Having been here and heard stories for so long, I've kind of like made this up. And so your part is to follow a thread. So I'm going to talk about different work guilds. Every person, as I see it, has 4 different social attachments. One is family. The second is clan, which might not be your genetic family, right? But it's your Raven clan or Wolf clan or Elk clan. The third is your guild. And that's what work you do, what work you specialize in. Everybody knows how to do everybody else's jobs, pretty much. But you have a specialty. It's your guild, you're a guild member. You're an herbalist guild, or you're a shepherd's guild, or you're a woodworker's guild, or you're in some kind of a work association. And the fourth is your connectivity of all those things, your council situation. Which councils are you in, where decisions get made? So your decision-making position. How are you in that? I'm also going to mention people who come through here at different times a year, right? And they're not, some of you may want to identify with those travelers, the trader travelers, the story bringers, okay? So that would be another thread. So see if you can pick this up, because in 2 hours, I'm only going to be able to outline this for you and kind of give you this idea. Yes?
Yeah, I wanted to ask if anyone is
Yeah.
going to downtown Medford when this is over, that has room for me in their car so I don't have to take the bus back.
So she doesn't have to run and try to catch the bus.
Anyone going that direction at all?
Is anybody going to Medford after this?
All right.
All right. Okay, Kathy, maybe someone will come up and...
So when I get up and leave around
That's
9
why
a.m.,
Kathy's running to catch the bus.
It's not because Tom's
Yeah.
doing a bad job.
All right, I'm doing okay so far? All right,
Yeah,
good.
Great.
So let me set the scene one more way, which is I want us all to deeply realize that we are natural beings on this landscape and that we belong here. Right? That's the kind of a big healing that I want to do for everyone. That we're not necessarily here making messes. We're here, we have work to do here. And the land misses us. Because there have been First Nations people working this land for, well, anywhere between 50 and 250,000 years, depending on who you talk to. And so the land, it's only very recently, 150 years ago, 200 years ago, that got broken. And I can still see the remnants of the ethnobotanical work as I walk around this landscape that shows what the First Nations people were doing on this landscape. And so we don't have that big a jump to get back into the game. It's not that big. I just want to be encouraging, right? And I referred to Paul Shepard last time, Nature and Madness, especially, and coming home to the Pleistocene. And he says it's so important to make sure that the children have full support when they're infants, full human contact at all times. It's called continuum parenting. And then, from 3 to 9 years old, to have total nature immersion. And Elizabeth and I grew up in the Adirondacks, and we had that childhood. This is the only other person I know, and luckily I've known her forever, who can relate to what I'm talking about here. This magical childhood. Yes, we have another Adirondacker back here who also was raised in the woods as a wild child. And you learn so much. Yes, yes, all right. One learns what Paul Shepard says, this does have to do with the story, is that as a child in nature, your brain picks up the metaphors for thinking. The fox, the mud, the lichen, the bark, the dark, the light, the rain, the cold. All those things are genetically built into our brains. And if we have that full complement of natural symbology in our symbolic repertoire in our brain, then we have 1/2 of a chance of becoming adults, of actually growing up and being able to be useful. And a lot of us are kind of like missing parts of that vocabulary. So I talk here about children's pilgrimages because Elizabeth and I went on children's pilgrimages. In fact, when we first got together in our early teens, we took each other to our childhood pilgrimage places. Oh, you've got to meet this tree. Oh, you've got to see this rock. Right? And that's what we did.
Yes.
It's exactly what we did.
You got to climb this tree.
We got to climb this tree. We got to
Right.
climb this tree. You got to climb this rock.
Right.
You got to jump in this ice cold lake. Yeah. All right, Liz. So
And squish in this mud.
and squish in the mud. Yeah. We're now grandparents, so now that we're grandparents, we think kids are cute. So we are in the aggravation of the decline of empire. I don't think anyone would argue with that. And our job is to dodge. I don't think there's any more street fighting to do. So our job now is to make the new happen. And it's going to be completely helter-skelter. And I have complete, as much as I can, empathy for people's choices, right? Nobody knows what the right choice personally is right now, except clean up your act, a couple other things. But we are going to all get closer to each other in the future. I'm making a prediction here. We're going to work closer together. And that's the theme of today's story, is working closer together and working closely with the landscape, with what the landscape wants. So the landscape is coming into council with us. Here comes the landscape. It's at the table. So I just wonderfully got given a book on the serpentine geoecology, which is one of my favorite subjects. So I have it out here as a little special thing and keep me on the ground. So that's re-indigenation, finding ourselves in a place where we feel we belong there, where we don't feel like we're a visitor or a tourist or we belong here. There's work. The land wants us here. And let me repeat, if I didn't make this clear enough, my experience of the wildlands, mainly the mid-elevation wildlands, where I can see ethnobotany, my experience is that the land is lonely for us.
Just wanted to make sure the recorder was on.
Yeah, Elizabeth got it. I checked it out. Yeah, good. So stories can be remembering, and it's really good if we remember the indigenous stories of place. And my favorite source for that is Thomas Doty. I wonder how he's doing. Has anybody had any contact with Thomas Doty recently? I hope he's doing well. And he is Dagilma. And he's educated. And he has put on plays with Phoenix Talent High School, of staging the Dagilma myths. So that's a story, that's a storyline, a bunch of stories to remember. Then there are stories of envisioning, and that's what we're going to be up against tonight. The culture I came out of, that Elizabeth and I came out of, is Quaker culture. And the Quaker I want to first recommend to you, her work, if you can find it, is Elise Boulding. Elise Boulding went around to cities and she did positive envisioning with people. And the first thing she had to do is get people to let go of their buts. No, but. No. Forget it. Sit on your butt. And she was very powerful in releasing people's imagination. She could set you up to go, to do it, to do the envisioning. So her skills are very important. And then there's all these science fiction writers. Ursula Le Guin, big time, always coming home. Kim Stanley Robinson, a favorite of mine. Octavia Butler, Margaret Atwood. These are people who are telling these big stories. We live here. And the Siskiyous are one of the more fabulous places on the planet. They're so complex. And we have this special situation where the valleys are below snowline most winters, most of the time. And the hills above us, the mountain ranges above us, were glaciated not that long ago. So we have all these elevations. It gives us an incredible repertoire of places to be at different times of year. And we have all these different geologies. So we have different waters, we have different soils, we have different creeks, we have valleys that point in every direction. So you want a north-facing valley? No problem. You want a southeast-facing valley? Sure. We've got all this stuff. It's pretty big. It means that we have a very large, complex landscape to live on, and our societies, our life will be on that landscape, living with that complexity, fitting into it, figuring out how to do this. How does this look year-round? Now, I have invented a new county called Wagner County. And Wagner County is the south half of Jackson County. And the line basically goes between Talent and Phoenix. And so we're thinking the Green Springs, Ashland, Talent, and the Applegate, the little Applegate, all the way over to Thompson Creek is Wagner County. It's this range. It's all the high ground. It's the water basin. It's the collection points. So that's Wagner County. And Wagner was run out of talent at one point for being nice to the Indians. And I was up at Grouse Gap Shelter one day, 10 years ago, and this woman that looks very much like Elizabeth, and her tall, lanky partner got out of a car and stopped to talk to me, and I was going, well, where are you going? And they pointed at the bushes, and I said, oh, you know your way around here? And she said, oh, I am Wagner's great-great-granddaughter. So I've met Wagner's great-great-granddaughter. And there's a plaque in Talent that shows where his trading post was. And so there's a whole history here of who Wagner was, and the other family were the Beesons in Talent, and they were Quakers. They were the first Quakers here. So what we've got now is that we've moved out of the valley bottom. Ashland is kind of okay because we've got these old canals and stuff crossing it. But most places that are down in the valley bottom, they've been in this smog, and all the Native Americans, all their villages were up at mid-elevation, between 2,000 and 4,000 feet elevation. They weren't down in these valley bottoms. Well, guess what? We've got these canals, the irrigation canals, that run at that elevation on both sides of the valley. So imagine that those irrigation canals are now narrow gauge railways next to a canal that's been improved enough so that during the time of the year when we've got plenty of water, we're actually using those canals for transport. We're moving materials, logs, rocks, we're using those canals. And our villages are connected by this little teeny railroad that's going in and out of these valleys and visiting all these locations, and that's what's holding us together. And to get to the little Applegate, we've got a cog railway that goes over Wagner Gap. And then we've got steam lines. We've taken old vehicles and we've refit them for steam. And they're running up and down the remnants of roads and stuff like that. So this is how we connect this whole long, skinny Wagner County together. Let me read this. Thus we are indigenes all, semi-nomadic herbalists, sedentary millers, traders, horticulturalists, rangers, and crafter guilds, all working together to keep it living. Everyone has work, praise, family, and is deeply connected to the land. Everyone. Because we live here. I'm going to start with January. and end with December. I thought about this, all right? So by the time that we've been through all the festivals and we're in early January, what's going on? What are we doing? The valley fogs are thick. There are really cold freezes. We're up in our villages. Hardly anyone's out wandering around. Some rangers, but some people to go up onto the snow, but pretty much we're tucked in. And that means we're in the saunas. We're drinking Applejack. Warning, there's a sort of an alcohol thread through this, which is what we would be drinking, okay? So it just turned out to be the thing that ties a bunch of things together, right? When I thought about it, I went, oh, look at that, okay. So it's Applejack. You know how to make Applejack? You take apple cider that has fermented and you freeze it on the back porch, and what you pour off that isn't frozen is Applejack. It's very good. We're eating berry cakes. They're the berries from the summer. We're eating these cakes, these dried berry cakes. And we're making berry soup. And berry soup is delicious, as a few lucky friends of mine found out recently. We're running the ovens. We're running the pottery kilns. We've got medicinal wines. And out on the landscape, what we are doing is we're burning the mid-elevation southwest slopes that we can't burn at any other time of year without harming the ground and getting too hot. But in January, we can do this special winter burning where the ground actually stays wet and you burn over wet ground. And we have actually been doing this at Wolf Gulch. So I'm not making this up. And this is traditional Indian downhill burning in the middle of winter in January. So we're out burning. But we're also basket weaving, yes, doing crafts, storytelling. A lot of our nomadic itinerant people are in winter camp. And we're listening to reports from the rangers. The rangers are feeding us information that they've gathered about the whole landscape. So everybody's taking in last year's information in order to plan the next year. So we're listening to the watchers. The people are reporting to us. They're telling us stuff while we're working in our warm places just before we take another sauna. And most folks are in town and we're above the fog. Then we get to our first festival day, which is February 2nd. So there's also a thread here which I'm using the Celtic cross-quarter days idea because it's farming based. And I think will be, and since so many of us here are from Northern European stock, this is kind of in our blood, okay? So that Imbolc, that first thing, that first cross-quarter day, February the 2nd, this is, in January, the sun doesn't seem to be doing anything. It's just always cold and always short. And then, at February 2nd, we can feel the quickening. So it's called the quickening. We can feel this change. It almost makes us dizzy because the rate of change is the cross-quarter days. That's where things either speed up fast or slow down fast. So this is it, the quickening, February the 2nd. And the first lambs are born. And at the same time, the last culls are made. So there's feasting because we're slaughtering some of the animals, some of the herds that we don't have enough hay for the rest of the winter. So we're thinning, but we're also seeing birth at the same time. It's all that Imbolc. It's all about Imbolc. The alder is blooming. The hazel is blooming. And we're out looking for the grouse flowers, these little purple flowers, the very first flowers in the beginning of February, the end of January. That's all really important for us to be looking for. So I'm calling it the First Flowers Festival. And we're looking at crafts tools. We're having a repeat of our favorite shows from the holiday season because they've been practiced, right? And the troops are still in town. They haven't gone off under shepherding. So we're getting some repeats, you know. We got those stories being told again. We're in the great halls. We're in the up drainage villages. And if we can get the train to run, there's a rolling market party on the train at Imbolc. We're touring. We're on this train. We're stopping at the villages. There's a little bit of trading. We have bonfires. And we're throwing the old stuff out. And it's ritualistic. We're throwing old stuff out. We're getting ready for spring. We're getting ready. It's Imbolc. Away we go. And we're running our charcoal kilns up at the right at the base of the snow line. We're running a whole bunch of charcoal kilns, making charcoal. So we're busy that way. And this is when we gather the hazel for our very best baskets. And we've got the bonfires, we've got the sauna, and for hazel it all needs to be peeled because in the Siskiyous we've got a lot of bark beetles. And the bark beetles we have to deal with. They do important ecological chores. But to keep our hazel, we need to heat the hazel over fires, and it smells really cool, like popcorn, I'm told. And then you peel off that bark, and so we're building up a stash of hazel withies, of little bits of hazel. And this is our time for the last patch burns, because March comes, and this is when the birds start to come back. Things just start to quicken even more, and we shouldn't be working in the woods as much anymore because the birds are looking for nesting places. Things are starting. The deer are chasing away last year's yearlings, looking for a place to have their fawns. You know, there's a bunch of stuff about to happen in March. And that's, so we're still doing burn piles, but they're at mid-elevation. We've got a lot of early emergence. So that's the cresses, the violets, the foam lomatiums, the cranesbill. Those are very important. All of those are spring tonics because all winter we've been low on greens. We have dried things, you know, but this is when we get our fresh new emergence, and those are so important for us health-wise. So we're feeding these to the children mostly, but we're looking for these special little treats while we're out getting ready. We're compost building, and we're working in the valley orchards and pastures, meaning pruning, cleanup, getting ready, and you'll see why in a moment. I hope you're following these threads. And this is when the guild meetings happen. It's during March to make the plans for the work, to make the very specific plans. Remember last month I said the rangers brought down the reports. Well, now the guilds meet, taking the rangers' information and start making their plans. And so they start working on their packs, they start working on their pack animals, they're starting working on what tools they need that they can carry, you know, that nothing heavy. We're walking. So that's important that those guild meetings happen. Then comes the equinox. 21st of March, right? Got the right, isn't that it? Yeah. And the equinox, at the equinox, the day length is changing exactly the same from day to day. It's not that, at Imbolc it was just like quickening. There's like this rush. But at equinox it's like, oh my God, it's down, oh my God, you can feel this like, whoa, it's moving through. That's the sense of equinox. But there's a specific point there. And most cultures who watch for the equinox have a cave where the sunrise touches a certain part in the back of the cave. And so this is like the first children's pilgrimage. Besides taking them up onto the snow at Imbolc, let's go up on the snow and back, but tell some snow stories. But the next thing that we've got is that we're taking them to the rushing rivers and to the cliffs and to the caves for the sunrise mark. And we're looking for the early flowers and the first birds, and we're telling stories about all those things. And that's that very important, let's get out of the buildings, let's get out, let's tell stories about, let's get excited. We're going to be outdoors for the rest of the year until the snows come back again. This is our last chance in late March to be diverting excess water floods, safely, without floods, without being overwhelmed by water. We're diverting into reservoirs. We're diverting into soak-away, meaning water table building. So this is our winter diversion moment. So we're doing a lot of water work, a lot of ditch work. We're doing a lot of impounding of water, cleaning ditches. We're really getting all that ready, up to go. And this is the spring salmon run. So we have the spring salmon ceremony. And oh, is that exciting. Because there it is. They're cursing up. Look, spring is coming. It's up the rivers. Here it comes. So it's like really exciting for everyone, especially the kids. But all of us are like, it's good. We're going to be good. It's fine. We're going to get back to those high mountain pastures that we love. So away we go. I have to check this out time-wise, right? I've got 5 pages. Okay. Now we're in April. And in April, we're doing our first sowing of pelletized seed that we've encased in clay. We're doing our first early sowing to get things out. That's the fastest barley, the fastest daikons, the varieties that we've worked out that will get us food the fastest. And we're putting them out using this pelletized seed so that just the right conditions will germinate them and we'll have our fastest, earliest crop. We've really dialed that in. And we have our earliest pasture. Our grasses are coming up, and it's in the orchards, and it's in the savannas. And so we're moving out our newly birthed animals and their moms onto fresh grass. And we're very carefully managing that because we need to move them continuously because it's pretty soft ground, and the plants are pretty delicate. The new emerged grass is just coming up, and you just want to give your animals a taste of this to give them the strength because they're kind of like, whoa, that barn was ugly. We're doing a lot of our techie stuff because we have water power. April is busy. Are you catching this? We're getting busy. We're outside, we're busy. So the millers are busy. The sawers are busy. So we've got the sawmills going, we've got the grinders going, we've got the machine tools going, we've got the floppy belts, the water wheels, all this it's kind of noisy. The creeks are noisy, the machines are noisy, everybody's still in town and they're kind of like bumpy. It's like, well, when do we get out of here? We've been in here all winter. Come on, where do we go? Are we going to go? Do we get to go? What's happening? So there's the early bird nesting, and there's the early morning chorus in April. That's when you have the most extensive bird song in the morning, that long, and that's when you tell the story of the origins of music and how music came to earth. So now this is get the children up really early, get them bundled out, and take them for that really early morning pilgrimage to hear those first birds and to tell stories about each one of those birds as they wake up and sing. Because it's a sequence, if any of you get up that early, you could hear there's first one bird, then another one, then this other one, then this. There's a sequence of how they start their calls. And there's a story about why they are in that sequence. There's lots of wildflowers. And we've got lots more of wild greens. We're getting, not only are we antsy from being kept up in the winter, even though it was great entertainment and all that, the saunas, yeah, and the Applejack. But now we're getting some good food. And it's like we're starting to feel our blood. Our blood is warming. We're feeling it running better because we're getting wild greens. And we've taken the very last cabbages and made them all into sauerkraut. So there's the last of the vegetables that are like and weird looking. We're fermenting them all. It's like the last of our storage. We're fermenting the whole batch. Because we've got some fresh greens, so okay, we're going to make it. Let's ferment it all. So we're making huge amounts of sauerkraut going on. And there's multiple birthings taking place. Both wild animals and animals that live closer to us. It's just birthing. The year is birthing. We're on it. It's happening. And then here comes Bridget. May the 1st. May Day. And we just can't contain ourselves anymore. So we go a little wild. May Day, we get really wild, actually. And we might even take all our clothes off. It's May Day, okay? So it's just like May Day. And there's really wonderful things that happen. The hedges are full of things happening. And you're doing your May baskets. You're making these little baskets, you're hiding in the hedges, you're putting them in people's front doors, and you're running and hiding again. So there's all these secret gifts being given. This is the time when you give secret gifts that you don't say, oh no, that wasn't me. No, I didn't do that. No. So there's all this, and it's always flowers. And then under the flowers in the May basket is some goodies. So there's these little May baskets, there's the hedges, all fits together, keeps everybody busy while other people are out, at merriment. And we've got spring fair. And this is when all the new stuff comes to market, meaning starter plants, baby chickens, baby fowl of various sorts, baby birds, lots of baby birds. So there's lots of cheeping and lots of flowers and lots of little delicate plants. And, everybody's kind of getting the idea that something's happening. And the summer clothes are being shown, which is really rough, right? It's May the 1st. It's still kind of cold, unless you're properly ready to take off your clothes. But we need to get ready. Look at those summer clothes. Yes. Oh, check out these tools. Oh, my size needs some work. And so there's size tuning and there's workshops happening and people are getting all their tools together. It's that last minute. And there's a big barn dance because the hay lofts are empty. So all the hay lofts are open, and there's all these big dances. Big open hay lofts and big festivals, because we've got indoor space that usually you'd have to burrow into. That's always nice, too. We've done that. We've done that. That barn dance and those empty hay lofts, those were fun. And it's the first cutting of hay on just the right slopes. And so there's this special scythes that come out. And the cutting of hay is now going to happen for the next few months at different elevations. And so this is the beginning of something, warming up your strokes, getting so that you're just dancing. This is why we have these barn dances, so that you're ready to take long walks and you're ready to waltz through the grass with your scythe without any effort. very gracefully. Down comes the hay. And the hay is all carefully, it's not raked hard because it's very delicate hay. It's very carefully brought up and immediately fed to the animals that have been in quarter all winter. You know, like, okay, get some energy up. We're about to leave. First summer planting at the end of May, and the last frost at the end of May, usually. Depending on where you are, it's the Siskiyous. Then June comes. And the first people who head out, I think, is the herb guild. The herb gatherers are leaving town ahead of everybody else, because they want to get to the flowers and roots and other things before the animals do. So the herb gatherers are going to be the lead. And they also, herb gatherers cover a lot of ground. And the rangers work closely with the herb gathering guild. So the rangers are giving clues to the herb gatherers. And the herb gatherers are moving up. The rangers are just ahead of them. And they're figuring out, you know, where's the best pickings? How are we going to get this all together? And away they go. And then the herders come out of winter camp with their animals, and they've already used up the grass, the early pasture in the orchards and the savannas at the lower elevations. And now they're moving up into the mid-slopes, like that whole face of Grizzly would be the herders, the first place they went, because that's all south-facing slope. Oak pine savanna is what it used to be, and that would be the first good pasture where we could take a bunch of animals. The rangers are busy clearing the trails, opening up the trails for the herders to move their animals up, and rebuilding the cairns if any of the cairns have been knocked over by the winter. So the rangers are like making the way and talking with the herbalists, and here come the herders behind them, very slowly moving their animals upslope, little by little, and very carefully looking at how they're dealing with the grasses and how they're dealing with the ecology of the savanna. In other words, using their animals for ecological purposes, using the animals to increase fertility in those mid-elevations, and then move on without compacting too much. And they're also doing some seeding, some reseeding and things, so we've really gotten good with our animals. And this is when we're seriously doing hay cutting. We're really cutting a lot of hay. And luckily, where does that come? Oh, that comes June 21st. We're still early in June. We're coming up to it though. And in the towns we are weeding, tending, trellising. But out on the landscape, the root camps, this is the first root camps, where we're looking at the lower elevation lomatiums mostly, biscuit roots, and some of the early camas, but camas is a little later usually, but we're looking at all of that. And we're harvesting the winter grains. Now this is a big thing in the Rogue Valley that we haven't learned to do yet. We haven't put the guilds together for overwinter food crops, which are like barley, daikon, fava, or lentil, oats, something else. These are crops that were sowed last fall, actually germinated under the snow load, and then on the right slopes, they have the grains and the beans are already being harvested in mid-June. You're bringing in your first crop. And that first crop, especially the barley, the early barley, the winter barley, is brewed up into the new summer beer. And one of the things you absolutely need to cut a lot of hay is good beer. Otherwise, you're just not going to keep the dance step right. Remember what I said about proper sizing, right? So you've got that new summer beer. It's kind of light, it's kind of thin, It isn't roasted grain, but it's that summer beer. It's that hay cutting beer. And so everybody's out there. They're doing all this cutting. Now, there's a thread here which I know it picks up later, but let me try to talk about it. Note that when everybody's in town, there are things that happen, like the Ranger Council, like where everybody hears it. But then people are starting to leave. The herbalists are gone. Then the rangers are gone. Then the herders are gone. The shepherds are gone. Who's left? So there are some people who don't leave. And those are the farmers' guilds or the gardener guilds, or the people who are staying at lower elevation, and the people who are not up to the long walks anymore. And the merchants stay in town, and the warehouse, the women who run the warehouses stay in town to guard the warehouses, and not just guard the warehouses, but get ready for the travelers who are going to start coming through, so that you can trade for that special obsidian, or for those special grinding rocks, or for those special salvage materials from that long ago empire which you only have vague stories of. Then everything seems to settle down. You're at the summer solstice. Summer's going to last forever. Every day's just as long as the next. It's just every day you get up in the morning, you start to get lazy about this. It's summer. We're good. No problem. Everything's great. It's the solstice. So, it's the festival of flowers. There's the baskets. In the valley, you're doing a lot of basket harvesting at this time of certain things. And this is when the rites of passage and weddings take place. Just before you break up and go off on your separate guild work. Or just those young people who are just being initiated into a guild. The rites of passage into your guild. You're being apprenticed out to this guild, or you're being apprenticed out to that guild. All of those kinds of arrangements happen at the solstice. This is when it's proper for these special ceremonies to take place, for the weddings, the rites of passage, and for me, most importantly, the village elders' councils. This is when the elders are going to be there for the rest of the summer, and they are going to have time to talk to each other. It's comfortable. They don't have to worry. They can meet outdoors. They can circle up. If you really want to study this, you look at the Iroquois model. You look at what the Iroquois villages, especially the Mohawk, which I grew up with, the Mohawk cycle. And it's very similar. There's a village culture during the summer. And who do you have? The smallest boys, the smallest children, the elders, and the women who run things. Right? That's who's around all summer. And the merchants, like I said, traders, getting ready for the traders. And at this time, there are easy tours. There are train and canal tours that the elders can ride on, and the children with them, because their parents have left for higher elevation, have moved. They're out on guild work. So the elders have the children. And you have lovely garden villages. So you have all these flowers. You're in these boats because there's still enough water to float boats in the canals. And the trains are running. They run year-round pretty much. So you take these tours and you meet village-to-village contact while half the people are already left. And then that's when the last valley hay is cut, is at the solstice. At that point you fallow your hayfields. You're not going to get another cutting without the artificial irrigation that we're doing now. You know, that's your last cutting. Now you're cutting at higher and higher elevation. So your last cut of hay starts moving upslope. Just like your first pasture moves upslope. And you move following that grass, following that hay, with your animals, with your system. And most folks are traveling. There's hardly anybody around, except like I described. It's a different culture, that summer culture. But it's glorious. I mean, the kids love it. I mean, lovely garden cottages, flowers everywhere. Your grandmother, you know, I mean, how'd you get off duty, by the way? Did you have to petition or something?
They're traveling right
Oh,
now.
they're traveling. They're
Yes.
winter traveling.
Yes, they're winter traveling.
My goodness. Well,
Doesn't fit your mom.
I'm used to you being draped in grandchildren, so, okay. There are barns upslope. Now, I'm not sure how much moving of hay we do. I have some things to work out here, right? But I think as we start moving the animals down, we use them to carry hay down, right? The animals become multiple purpose, and we start carrying hay down from the upper hay ricks, where we dried hay on the upper meadows, in the upper elevations. This is when we have the summer camps at the lakes. So there's like moments, there's vacations. There's like not as much hay to be cut. The animals are busy grazing. The herbalists are kind of like at a pause. This is when we meet for our summer camps at the lakes. This is the special get-together in the summer. And it's in mid-July, late July. And in the villages, we're weeding, we're building compost piles, we're cutting forage, we're taking care of the smaller animals that don't travel, we're doing a lot of nursery work, plant propagation. And interestingly, all of the crops and all of the systems around the villages are being guarded because there's a lot of wildlife that's moving down as the guild workers move out. and this is all, when I say keeping it living, I'm referring to the book of the same name, edited by Nancy Turner, Keeping It Living. And she talks there about how First Nations people didn't just walk across the landscape and pick a little something here and then pick a little something there. They had intensively farmed patches. And these patches were incredibly productive. They were high production patches. These herbs, these roots, it was all very, and every one of those patches were marked with special totem poles. They weren't those carved mask-like totem poles. They had rings on them or diamond patterns, and they were cedar sticks. And so every clan had marked patches, and those patches were guarded 24/7, mostly by young boys learning to become hunters. So they have these small bows and arrows, they have their rocks, their slings, their slingshots. You know, these boys have real, and the women warriors, they have this real special work, because the girls and the boys at that age, they want to do the same stuff. You know, so they're out there guarding these patches. And that's a big thing that's happening during July, is this guarding. Meanwhile, the interesting people start coming through. The travelers, the nomads, the gypsies, the traders. And they're weird looking. You know, we don't recognize their guild marks. Most of us, we have names now which are, I'm Hazel from the Fish Clan, from the village of Little Wolf Gulch. And so you know my name, my clan, my place. But the gypsies come through. Where are you from? Oh, we're not from anywhere. Where are you going? Oh, to the next place. So it's a very different thing, and we're fascinated by this. You know, well, how do you make it? Oh, well, you'll note we're already headed south. And you start putting this together. And a couple of kids run away with the gypsies, right? So you have to keep your eyes open. You want to make sure they know what they're doing if they're going to pull this off, right? Let's be careful. But there's a lot of information. This is when a whole different type of information comes through than what the rangers were bringing down for us, right? Which is landscape information. Now you've got long distance information coming through. And all of that information is going into Elders Council, is going into Summer Elders Council. They're the ones that are receiving this traveling information. And they're holding this information to get ready for the storytelling in the fall when we all come back down. The Women's Council is stocking the warehouses. They're repairing and getting ready for the new crops to come in, for the new materials to come into the warehouses and into the caches and into the caves and the storage cellars. And so there's a great deal of bustling and getting ready and making sure things are swept out and aired out well. And this is going on. There's summer school. There's outdoor skills. So there's a lot of education that happens in the middle of summer for the kids, not during the school year as we know it, and as we know it now. And some farmers have been freed up. This July period is interesting because this is when the barn raisings take place. This is when the roofs get repaired. This is when pottery is made and dried to be baked later, to be put in the kiln later. This is when road work is being done. A whole bunch of infrastructure stuff is being done in late July. You're just ahead of Lammas, of that next cross-quarter day. Because then, and this is when the pilgrims are coming through to do the Shasta pilgrimage. This is that summer high country pilgrimage time. So there's a kind of a catering to the pilgrims, and some of the elders have moved way up slope to be the tea house keepers, to take care of the tea houses and to take care and tell the stories to the pilgrims as they go through. So there's this whole other thing happening that's parallel to the rangers, guild workers up slope. It's very interesting how those cultures are overlapping and the information that they're trading with each other. And what the pilgrims experience, because the pilgrims are coming from some other place, south of us, or north of us, or east or west of us. Then comes August the 2nd. It's another one of those cross-quarter days. All of a sudden you notice, oh shit, summer's over. Because the day length is like changing really fast. The rate of change is the fastest on August the 2nd. That's when you realize, oh, it's going to happen, isn't it? It's coming. The cold times again. So you have a great big harvest festival, and you have a big appetite. So, and you eat the stuff that isn't going to store very well. So then you eat all that juicy and punky and the cucumbers and the first tomatoes and this is it. This is the stuff. The basil and all the peppers, huge numbers. I mean, everything. It's so delicious. All this stuff, and the summits and the first folks are down from the high country. The herbalists are down by Lammas. They have come down, and they've brought with them a great deal of material, a whole bunch of material, and the warehouse keepers, the Women's Council, is ready for this. And the children are ready from this, because here comes baskets and herbs and smells and stories and reports. How is it going up there? Oh yeah, well we're the first ones down and we can tell you things are good. So-and-so broke his leg, but he's doing all right. We got him on a pony. And so you get all the information, and this is when the harvest guilds formally. This is August the 2nd, Lammas. There's like a okay, this is it, the harvest. So everyone kind of sobers up by getting really drunk. And it's how it's done in some cultures. And the processes. And so there are August camps. These are those late summer camps that aren't that far from the villages. They're near those patches. They're near those crops. And they're your last outdoor living, right? This is where you really get it in. Those summer shelters. They're brush shelters. They're very simple. It's just like comfortable. And the first hunting. And that's mostly done around the crops. At this point, the hunters, you might notice that the hunters are the farmers. And that they're doing a whole bunch of work in town during the summer, because they're the ones that are going uphill when all the guild workers are coming downhill. And so the hunter-farmer guild is something we're not used to. It's a very traditional pattern, but it's something we really can get to understand and to really hold, right? So these people who are the crop guilds, hunter crop guilds, harvesting, are watching the wildlife while they're harvesting the crops. They're getting their first clues. They're making observations about, well, what are we going to do this fall? How are we going to do this? Well, let's go this way this time. We hunted there last year. So plans are being made. Talk is being made amongst that guild, that special guild. And this is important, and some of us don't realize this because we're used to irrigation. But in the middle of August is when you plant your winter crops, not September. You're planting in August. So this is when your grains and beans and a whole bunch of seed goes in the ground at a time when things are dry and baked. And again, you have tricks. You mulch it, you pelletize it, you have ways to get that winter crop established, to get ready for the very first rain, to have it all ready in the ground for that very first rain in early September or late August. You'll note this last year we had this August rain. And you'll note we have this really cold winter with snow cover. This is a good thing if you're growing overwinter crops. You want snow cover on them at this time of year. So which slopes you choose to grow on is very specific. You've learned, these are where the winter fields are. They're on these slightly northeast facing slopes. That's where the winter fields are. We know that because that's where the snow holds the best. And yet that's where there's full sun in the summer in early summer for ripening the grain. So you have all this knowledge about place, and it's all laid out for that. And in the savannas and the meadows, and to some extent in the orchards, where you did that very light grazing in the spring, you're now collecting seed crops. Because things that were stimulated by the early grazing have now come forward strong with seeds. Grass seeds, mustard seeds, limatium seeds, madia, sunflower seeds, all kinds of seeds are being wild harvested in that late August window, early September. Now it's September. Yeah, I think I'm going to make it to see, 3 pages down, 2 to go. In September, in early September, a great deal of winter prep is taking place in the high country. Most of the work has been done in the high country. The herders are still out there. The herbalists have left. The hunters haven't come up yet. But the people who are up there, the laggards from summer camp, etc., are putting in wood for the hunters, are making sure all the shacks are together, and are converting the tea houses to winter shelters, to emergency winter shelters. They're shuttering the tea houses, they're putting big boards up around them, they're putting up the Santa Claus chimney, we need a better name for that, so that the hunters and the lost people, people trapped in storms, can find these tea houses and can get in there. Okay, so so this whole change happens fast in the high country. It happens so fast. The season changes so fast that that's where the first winter prep is taking place. And a whole bunch of things get dialed in the high country. The winter hut conversions from the Camino, the pilgrimage. And the rangers are doing their watershed or drainage basin circuits, which I call the drainage basin pilgrimages. For decades, I've been doing a pilgrimage around the Ashland watershed. I know where the secret springs are. I know where the secret camps are. And I can do a 3 or 4 day pilgrimage that completely walks the Ashland watershed. And it starts in Lithia Park. And I've done this 10 or 12 times. And it's so amazing how you start in town and you go up onto the 7,000 foot range and you circle our heart, the watershed, the water, and you come back down. And it's your last high country trip. The snows, it's just before the snows. You learn so much. It's so important. It's a very important thing for everybody to get really focused on who you are, where you are, why you're there. All of that. Your feet on the ground, you're up on the ridges, you're doing that pilgrimage. So that's an important pilgrimage. The kids do smaller ones perhaps. This is when the big salmon ceremonies take place, the special ones where I believe that the Dagilma have brought the salmon ceremony back to Gold Hill, and they're taking the salmon bones and they're putting them down in the deepest hole under the rocks. And this is when these really sacred things happen. Very important because winter's coming. And what would we do without the salmon and without the berries and without everything that we've done to this landscape to bring it back to life and to keep it living and to have the salmon back again. So it's the core of who we are. We're people of the salmon on this landscape all together. And it's fruits and nuts. We're starting our harvests. And then at September 21st, equinox. Now we're in free fall. Instead of that feeling at Lammas of, looking over the edge, now at equinox, at fall equinox, we're on that slope. We're like, we're headed down. Look, every day is shorter. Every day. Down, down, down. Fast changes. And we have the farm festivals. And this is when we have the athletic events, special athletic events. We're getting strong for the winter. We're strong from the summer. We're full. We're healthy. We're the healthiest. We've been eating the best. We've been exercising the best. This is when we get to play with our bodies, to really show what we can do, to exercise ourselves, to push ourselves. This is when the really, really long races take place. The big, big long ones. The runners go out. This is when invitations are sent out. So messengers, long distance runners are sent out on the equinox. This is the last chance to be able to get over the passes and come home again. So this is your last opening. This is the runners, the athletics, this is what's happening. This whole thing for the passes. Then early October, the herders are down. We can hear them coming, right? The bells. We can hear the herders coming. We can hear the herds coming. We get news too. Oh, they're coming. We're getting ready for them. And it's interesting, right? We have freed up a great deal of our population to go away for the summer. And then a lot of us who are still here, and I remember how I told you what that looks like, who's still here, are getting ready to welcome everyone back. And I'm a fan of Morris Berman, who's a sociology historian, thinker, and he wrote a book called Wandering God. In the last stretch of Western civilization history, the wanderers, the herders, the herbalists have been not welcomed by the townspeople and the farmers. The farmers and the townspeople have like, will you please go away and stay away? You're like, crossing my fences. Like, what's going on? So we really need to all work together. So I want this big healing to take place. So when people are coming down, when the guilds are coming down from their summer work, there's parades. They parade into town, and we lay out a feast for them. Welcome back. We're glad to see you. And the other thing that's happening, remember all those identities I talked about at the beginning? Is we're all coming back together. We've got our guild identity, but now we're re-entering our clan identity. And then we're re-entering our family identity, because everybody's coming back together. So all these social arrangements with each other are being re-knit for the winter, because we're going to be in close quarters with each other for the winter, and we're going to get along, right? So this is all done ceremonially. This is all beautifully laid out, the way we welcome everybody back. Everybody's reintegrated. Everybody brings gifts, their stories, the things they've harvested, the animals they've fattened up. All of this is coming back. Coming back. It's huge. It's gigantic. And that's that early October. Everything's coming back. And then we get busy processing, storing, getting under cover. Acorns, chestnuts, mushrooms. We're just busy, 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 busy. Then the end of October is that last cross-quarter day, Samhain, Halloween. And oh my goodness, that breaking, that accelerated breaking, you're there. At Halloween, you have entered winter, really. The days are super short from then on. And the frosts are hard freezes. End of October, hard freezes. So that's it. Bang! That last cross-quarter day. Whammo! It's so evident. And we get all dressed up. We light all these lights. We have huge feasts because we have to eat everything that won't last in storage. We just celebrate the year, and we do it, and then we celebrate our ancestors. Because it's our ancestors that have taught us all this stuff, and who got us to this place, and who brought back the salmon. It was those ancestors who brought back that salmon. And so there's the Day of the Dead. So important. And you've got your first apple cider. And you take the children out to the ruins. You take the children down to what's left of the cities. You take them to the broken down walls. And you tell them the stories at those places. You take them into the cemeteries. You show them the pieces of the past. You take them right into those places. And you tell them about it. Know about this. That's what this stuff is. That's a real special children's pilgrimage. It's not one we do much anymore. But where we came from, on the Vermont border, lots of cemeteries. Elizabeth is a little bit fresher blood, but my people have been in the county for 400 years. So we really feel the place. And there's plenty of cemeteries. No problem. Plenty of ruins. Elizabeth and I used to go to the ruins of the canals
Oh, yes. Yes.
on our ponies. Yeah. And look at this broken down stuff. You know, it's like, whoa, think about it. So important to get that perspective, those ancestor stories. It's November. This is the last possible time to get the hell out of the valley. If you're going to cross a pass, this is it, and you better have snowshoes. Because anything can come in at any time. Winter has really arrived. The first storms are in. And the rangers are up touring the winter camps and the lodges. They're making sure everything was taken care of, and they're taking care of last minute adjustments. They're like, you know, making sure the latch strings are out. They're making sure everything is good, ready for any travelers, and then ready to come back down. And this is another time when we cull the herd of animals. It's a killing time. And and it's cold enough now that we can hang the meat so that it'll keep. And we're getting ready for that first big feast of the winter. And we're doing our road prep, our earthworks. This is when we dredge our ponds. This is when we dig new ponds. This is when there's not been so much rain that things are mucky, but the dust has been knocked down. There's just enough moisture in the dirt so that it moves well and packs well. So we're using our oxen and our drag blades, and we're building our reservoirs that we're going to fill in March. Remember when we were diverting the last water? This is that time. It's a really, everybody is down, so we have big work parties. They're all strong because they've been eating well, they've been working well all summer. We're doing big stuff, earthwork stuff, putting fields together, roads, ditches, that kind of big, heavy, hard work. And we're making sure we've got our firewood, our charcoal, and it's the beginning of logging season. Because as soon as the ground's frozen, up above 4,000 feet, but the snows aren't too deep, there's no birds nesting, there's no animals giving birth, it's a good time to get up in there and drag logs, stash materials, do the thinning in the forest. You can see the forest structure really clearly. The leaves are down. And in the Adirondacks, that's what my brothers did, was the logging in the winter on the snow. Easier to skid logs on snow than anything else. So so that's when the logging season is, the upslope logging season. And then here comes the fall feasts, right? And there's a great deal of the eating of very fatty food. Because oily food, like certain acorns we're feasting on in November, like white oak acorns or live oak acorns, because they don't last in storage. Where the black oak and the tan oak, more like 5% oil, they'll last in storage for years in some cases. But we're feasting on the stuff that isn't going to last. And family reunions, like I said. Everybody's back together, and there's these special reunions. There's this special bringing back together. And did you hear the news? And did you know? And by the way, meet your new cousin. And, you know, so there's a whole of catching up. Before the celebration, there's the catching up. Now that's different, you know, now we never catch up. But, you know, the way I'm seeing this, you know, this is a very kind of a sequence, social sequence that I'm trying to portray here. The smithies are busy. There's no water power. But there's charcoal and there's wood and there's, you know, and you're in cover and you're ready to work in hot places. So the smithies are all busy. They're busy, busy, busy. They've got fresh ore that's been brought down during the summer from the quarries and from the caves and the mines. They've got a lot of stuff to do. The smithies are really on it right about. The wagons are beat because there's a lot of wagon repair. A lot of stuff that came down from the high country is beat up. So the smithies are on it. They're also turning out special stuff for the seasons, right? So all the smithies, all the craftspeople are really working. They're really busy. And the craft shops, the bakeries, the wineries, the cheese makers, the basket makers, the fabric weavers, the spinners, the wool spinners, the wool, it's all happening because we're getting ready for winter. And this is the materials of making it through the winter, using the raw materials that we've brought down from our ecological restoration work on the whole landscape. Larders, cool caves. Some areas in the Siskiyous are better than others. I want to thank all those poor, miserable, starving miners, who most of which were broken men, who had come a long ways looking for gold, who had very little to eat, but they built us some really good storage facilities that we're going to have forever. And so we're in there shoring up the old mines. All the old mines have been restored, not to mine, but to put the cheeses, the wines, the mushrooms, all these old mines. I know where there's some good mines nearby Ashland. All those mines would be put right back into major use, unless there's too much of this gas or that, but we'll work it out. So we're working on that, on the cool places, the dark places, the winter prep. And the children are out looking at colors and dressing themselves up in the colors of the season. This is like post-Halloween, right? But you're in that almost Thanksgiving kind of thing. Except I think it won't be Thanksgiving, it'll be its own thing. But by the time you do get to late November, you're in some big feasting time. Then we get to December. The charcoal people are busy again because the loggers have left them a lot of material to put into their charcoal kilns. And they can still get up to the area. The snowpack's not too deep yet. So the charcoal people are up at high country. The loggers are kind of wrapping up. They're still logging, but they're seed that it's coming. And so they're maybe decking the logs to get ready to bring them down to the sawmills in the spring when the water power is available. So everything is sequenced. Everything is laid out. And every guild knows their seasonal sequence. They know what happens next, what happens after that. The millers are busy again, but they're using animal power to turn their stones and to turn their saws. The last mushrooms are found, and the hunters are down in early December. The snows are too deep. The animals have yarded. It's not a good time to be ecologically managing the herds. It's time to have the predators do their natural. So we sort of give up the high country to the wolves. The wolves are back, by the way. Of course you would know that. And here comes the festivals. How many times have I said that, right? But everybody's kind of excited. Oh, winter's not so bad. We get to play. We got all this great stuff. We'll be good. No problem. Away we go. Woohoo! And there's all this visiting and sharing and distributing the surplus. And everybody's walking around in their new winter clothes because they're still clean. It's kind of hard to do laundry in the winter, you know. I mean, we do have steam baths going and stuff, but pretty much you got wool clothing. You're going to wear one set of clothes all winter, and in the spring you're going to wash them. Because it takes a long time for wool clothes to dry, right? So you get used to this stuff. So, yeah, while clean I wrote, yes. Now we're getting into the routines. We're making sure the chores are all covered. We're getting this into who's your backup? Who's covering this? Who's covering that? Is everything together? And especially the animals. You've got the animals in close quarters. They're going to have disease problems. They're not going to be happy. Even the animals are still remembering the high country. It's not just us and our guilds that are still telling stories about that glorious storm on the Soda Mountain crest, or we're all remembering this high country. I loved what Morris Berman talks about the shepherds dragging themselves out of winter camp, heading back with who's left of their animals after a hard winter, and walking over the first low hill where they can at last see the high country. And as soon as they can see the high country, they burst into song. They start singing. And they sing the rest of the way, all summer. And then during the winter, they kind of forget how to sing. And it gets hard on those wanderers. So we want to make it the townspeople want to make it really nice for all the upland guilds, all the wanderers. So everything's been set up for them. Everything's ready. We're feeding the animals, we're patrolling the fences, and we're putting up next year's firewood. Right? Not this year's. We're putting up firewood 2 years ahead, whatever. We're doing a lot of firewood cutting of the wood that the loggers aren't, the loggers mark some of the logs to be going to, there's all this sorting going on. Some of the logs are going to sawmills, some of them are going to turners, some of them are going to charcoal, some of it's going to firewood. All kinds of sorting and all kinds of caching of materials are happening through this whole cycle. And the guilds are really focused on that. Keep the highest quality of materials, leave the less damage of the land during the harvest, have an even better harvest the next year, keep that whole cycle going. And this is where a different type of school, the performance schools, are operating. There's all these things happening in places that aren't full of hay. And there's like, what are you folks doing over there? Oh, nothing. That's because things are being planned for the festivals, for the Yule festival. There's things, there's secrets going on. What are you doing? Oh, nothing. I'm just staying busy. Oh. Because you want surprises, right? That's what we're in the season of surprise. And what's the biggest surprise of all? The sun turning. The sun coming back again. And oh my gosh, are we getting ready for that? We've got the stones up. We've got that shaft of light. We've got that mark. We're waiting for that mark. The sun comes to that mark. It stays there for way too long. And then it starts to move. You go, it did it. It did it. Our magic worked. The sun's coming back. So everybody gets really excited about that. And the great halls, you've got all this oil. You've got fresh oil. You've got enough material. The guilds say, we have this much surplus. You can burn this many gallons of oil. And so the great halls are lit. There's light. The homes are lit. There's way more light than later in the winter. And that's the Festival of Lights. And also, you're trying to encourage that sun to, turn around and come back. So don't keep going. Come back. The very last travelers return. The people who had gone the furthest. Those messengers. The people who were off on a trip, a long trip. They've returned. At last, everyone's back. Everyone is back. And then comes the gifting. All those surprises that you were doing that you didn't want to talk about, they come out into light. And it's dance, and it's song, and it's costume, and it's gifting, and it's music, and it's plays, and it's storytelling, and this is it, right? This is it. We're all there. We've got great halls. We got plenty of food. We've got plenty of wood. And we have lots of distilled spirits that have been worked out from the extra beer that didn't get drank during the hay harvesting has all been turned into brandies, and all this has gone on. We've got a lot of parched nuts and seeds. We've roasted a lot of things, or parched a lot of things, to keep them from going bad. Like hazelnuts, for instance. You need to roast your hazelnuts, and then you need to store them in oil. And one of the favorite ways that we like to have hazelnuts stored in oil is in chocolate, right? Hazelnut chocolates. That's why the Swiss and the Germans, all these high elevation people have these hazelnut chocolates, because the hazelnuts don't go rancid when they're embedded and they've been lightly roasted first. So we've got all this knowledge about how to keep the highest nutrition from the gifts that we've gotten from the land that we're restoring, that we've been working on. And we've got very long stories, much longer than tonight. The epic stories. This is when the epic stories get told. The stories that take several days to tell. And the children are into them because they've heard them before. And the first winter sports. Whole different thing, right? What's it going to take us to have winter sports when we don't have... Oh, wait a minute. We've got that cog railway out of Talent. We can get to Wagner Gap on the cog railway. Oh, we can get up to the Green Springs on that cog railway too, that goes straight up the rock at the head of Tyler Creek Road. So we can get to Snow. It's not too bad. It's a wagon ride up Tyler, get on the cog railway, boom, up 1,000 feet. No problem. It's also when the first floods come, the biggest floods. We haven't seen... A lot of us here have not been here long enough. I saw the flood of 73. I heard a lot about the flood of 64. If the flood of 64, which happened in between Christmas and New Year's, were to happen this winter, which isn't likely because we don't have the snowpack that we did then, bye-bye I-5, bye-bye Grants Pass, bye-bye. I mean, the flood of 64 and 54 and 43 and 34 and 26 would wipe out modern civilization. Any of those floods in southern Oregon, if they were to repeat. However, by tree ring records, it's a 60-year cycle, which started in 76. You can do your calculations. We're over halfway through. But then there's global weirding. So we don't know what happens next. Now, I wonder if this happened with your family too, Elizabeth, but we would take the kids out into the woods before Christmas to get really specific things. The running cedar. Remember the lycopodiums, the running cedar?
I remember you showing me that. That
Yeah, I
wasn't
showed
in my
you.
family.
That
We
wasn't-
had other things we got.
Right, you got other things, which are the Polish tradition. And yeah, what did you get out of the woods? You made the rosehip strings for the trees.
And wintergreen.
Wintergreen.
Wintergreen was a big one.
Wintergreen. Huh. Interesting. Well, we would go to very special places and look for very special things. Even though we were nominally, Quakers are sort of Christian, we would, as we built the creche, we'd put new characters in every weekend. We'd also be bringing a different part of the forest into the house every weekend. So that was important for the children to go out, get a special part of the forest that's decorative, and bring it into the home. So even though we're trapped indoors by the weather and the cold and the stories and the goings on, we're always remembering where we are. We're on this landscape, and we have icons of that landscape. Green, shiny, evergreen icons of that landscape, like Tannenbaum, like the Yule tree, like the wreaths, like the splays, the red berries, the shiny red berries, these things, bringing them out of the woods, the mistletoe, bringing them into the home, keeps us connected to our landscape and reminds us of who we are, that we belong here, that we're people of this place, and that this place loves us and that we love this place. Happy high holidays, folks.
Intention to do rocket stove greenhouses in winter. What is your perception on those intentions?
What?
Rocket stove greenhouses.
Rocket stove greenhouses. Yeah. Greenhouses I have attitude about because they're such an enclosed space that their ecosystem is very difficult to manage. Whiteflies, red mites, I could go on. Greenhouses are tough. You need to sterilize them. That's going to be rough. However, there are ways to do that. My botany professor taught me to make sawdust cans, sawdust rocket stoves, that smudge. You don't sleep in that greenhouse, but it smudges the greenhouse overnight while it's heating it. Then you air out the greenhouse, which you have mass in, and you're able to go in and work the next day. So maybe we work something out around that. But it's pretty advanced. We can do it. Yes?
Have you heard the story that the irrigation canals will be put into pipes? And how would that affect your futurology?
Oh, we can use those pipes. We take them out of the canals. We got use for those pipes. We'll be salvaging we'll be repurposing everything. I mean,
Nice willow tops.
yeah, they will. Exactly right. Yeah, they'll make great willow troughs.
You don't want to prevent this. That's just salvage.
Salvage. Yeah, yeah. The thing about the canals is that they're laid out on benches, and they're laid out pretty well. The engineering wasn't so bad. So I think we can retrofit that engineering. I've looked at it enough. I'm pretty hopeful that we can retrofit that. And these canal boats, are very long and they're built for the canals.
It'd be nice if you could talk the TID into creating bridges or all the siphons.
Yeah, the siphons.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, well, they started with flumes. Not the TID system, because it was built in '54, I think, but the older systems were flumes, and those work great. We can do, and that's what we're going to do with those pipes we pull out. We're going to turn them into flumes. Yeah, whatever. But yes, you're right. Otherwise, the boat stops. You've got a bridge. You carry the stuff over. You put it in the next boat. But then you got to get the train across too. I want this narrow gauge railway, so. We're going to do a lot of salvage.
Bridges to build.
Yeah, we got bridges to build. Yeah. In the back.
You give the house,
Thank you. Oh,
No, yeah, you first.
Me?
Yeah, then Tinder.
okay, thank you.
Kindler.
It's great to be here, thank you. I'd like to suggest we can wash our wool clothes in the winter. Since we are we're warm in the house, right?
Saunas and,
So-
yeah. I know, but I just like that. I have that said. Wool actually stays clean a long time because it breathes well enough. Yeah. So it can be all right. But it's kind of funny, you get your new clothes and then you live in them for the rest of the winter. So it's kind of the way. Yes,
so the
Kindler.
public library will be a ruin, all these houses that people are building will be ruined.
Yes.
Uh,
Well, they'll be
People
salvaged.
won't be here because the life is up the hill, is that the idea?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's nicer to live a little bit further uphill.
Okay.
Yeah. Ashland, like I said, Ashland's there at that 2,000 mark, right? So we're at the edge. So, but some of the lower parts, no. I envision the whole bottoms of these valleys to be in agroforestry. They're all in orchards and nut crops. You know, massive forests. That's what you want in the bottoms of these valleys. So, you know, that's the kind of thing. Yes?
Will you be doing guild counseling, and how do you imagine these guilds will form and people will know what to focus their energies around?
We're doing that. We're actually, we're,
Repeat the question, not everybody heard it.
I asked
Right.
if he would be doing guild counseling and how he imagines these guilds would form and people would come to be clear about what guild they want and should be a part of.
we're working on that. We are actually working on that. This will be the first winter that we're going to try to do a winter burning camp for 6 weeks. And there's a couple of representatives here from that group. And so we're starting to, and they are already doing root camp, and they're already doing what are called rougabouts, or hoop culture. And what I talked about was hoop culture today, about some people are in this hoop. It's a sacred hoop too, because it goes around and around, and you learn from it. And the counseling you get. Now, what did you mean about how the guilds would get counseling? Because you've got elders council, you've got the guild councils, you've got the clan councils, you've got the family councils. And there's overlap between all of those councils. So information is shared amongst those different councils. So if there was feedback to a guild from the rangers, it would go through council so that everybody heard it. Be a lot less, well, some of this is a little difficult for us to perhaps imagine. But since I was raised in the last of ancient Quaker practices, when one lives in a culture like this, you're not hyper-individualistic. You're not always thinking about what you want. You're thinking about what's good for everybody. So the counseling is less individual counseling and more communication. And I like the idea that people can express their feelings, but so that they share and so that we all gain an empathy.
I think that's what I meant is how do I best serve community? Which guild do I join?
You actually, as a child, you are seen loving the animals. Or you're noticed. That happened to me in my culture. I was apprenticed out at 10 years old to my god-grandmother in herbalism. They saw right away. At 5 years old, I started farming. I was growing stuff and selling it door to door in my little red wagon. So they knew, they could see who I was. And it was wonderful. It saved my life. Because there were other aspects of my life which were very dicey in the modern age. But my ancient culture had enough of it still together to do that. And then Elizabeth and our families merged. We became a giant clan. She had 3 sisters and a brother, and I had 2 brothers and a sister. That meant we could do barn dances just with our extended family.
Yes, and we had a good barn.
and yeah, after they got us ward boys over to clean it out.
clean
they
it
had
out,
to do
yeah.
it. But yeah, there are known ways, and it's wonderful that we have these bridges. We're on like I said at the beginning, we're on the West Coast. A lot of people have come here to Ecotopia from a lot of different cultures, and we still have First Nations people. And I consider myself indigenous to North America because I've been here enough hundreds of years, and because my clan and my family exhibit characteristics of indigenousness. So I feel like I can say, yeah, I'm a traditional. And so I'm here, I just did some bridging for you. And that bridging is what I think we need to do, make those connections, take the best of the best. I think that's some of the good parts of Ecotopia is syncretic culture reinvention. and country fare, which is all handcrafts. You can't sell anything at country fair unless you're juried. You have to have made it with your hands. Awesome. What a gift that we have country fair. I mean, I can't stand the crowds anymore, but I went for 8 years, so I know. Yes?
So hearing you talk about these different councils and how they share information, it kind of makes me think that what you're maybe envisioning is a culture that exchanges information largely verbally and not so much in text, or, you know, like it's, ideas are communicated and passed around by word of mouth more maybe?
The principles, however, are carved into the walls. So, for example, when I teach permaculture nowadays, we use posters. And like I thought of bringing posters tonight, but I decided, no, I'm telling you a story. You should be able to close your eyes and listen to me. But the best conversations in any culture take place in sacred groves, caves with paintings, canyons with certain rock formations, where you're surrounded with symbols that are the principles of your culture. The specific information is hung on that mnemonic architecture, it's called. And that way you hold the bigger story together while you exchange the immediate information for maintenance and for processing. So, and I've seen that happen. I mean, I've been in that situation. Interestingly, the Quakers simplified it all and strengthened the inner life. You know, it's silence, but still came to the same. So apparently there's a number of different ways to do this. But these are the ones I know. It's like have those iconic symbols around you. Have the principles in like I said at the beginning, in a symbolic repertoire. You know, fox, raven, they mean things. And if you always remember, everybody on this landscape. Oh, this whole place is sitting at this council. Look at them. There they are. Okay, we better be real. We're surrounded by our neighbors here. So I kind of get that. You know, I can see how that might work. Yeah. Yes?
I love your whole vision, so thank you.
Yeah. Great. May
just
it be.
wondering, what about like the risk of being in a bubble? Like, have you talked with other people from the other regions? Are there other people trying to implement the same?
Remember those travelers that came through who bring information from other cultures?
Right.
Usually there's a trading language. In Africa, it was Swahili, East-West. Here, it's Chinook. It's Chinook trading language. In the Iroquois, I'm not sure. I can't remember what was the trading language, but there was a trading language pre-invasion on the East Coast. I just can't remember what it was called. So there always is some kind of a language that is shared by the traders and that allows there to be culture. The other way to look at this is, wouldn't ecotourism be fabulous?
Yes.
Oh my God, if you left your own region and you bumped over the pass and you landed in Waireka and they did things real different in Waireka, you'd be fascinated. It's like, what are you people about over here? But you'd also be wearing your colors. You know, you'd have your guild hat. I have my storytelling vest. This is almost like a push, if I was a computer, there'd be sub-menus under each of these patches. These represent endless stories I can tell you. And I'm from the fish clan. So the whole vest is fish. All right? So I'm fish, and these are my guilds. These are my guild association patches. I'm a forester, I'm a permaculturalist, I'm a peace addict. I was in the Boy Scouts. Yeah. They threw me out, but I was there.
what does the economy look like, especially trade and commerce? Is it pure barter system, or is there a currency?
There are currencies, yes.
But it's not dollar, right?
No, it's not paper. I think that's the big difference. It's not paper. It's things of value that are small. And it could be carvings, it could be metal, it could be shells, wampum belts, cowley shells, certain things perhaps that come from far away become, basically that's recording, right? Keeping track of it is by having some other item to put in the middle of your trade so that you can make things go easier. Yeah. But otherwise, I'm really loving reading 5 Stages of Collapse by Dmitry Orlov right now. And he talks quite a bit about this. Where, the paper money, gone. And what have you got that you can trade? That are valuable, that's a value, that are markers, that then get passed around. So things happen. And then he very clearly says, financial capital's a joke. The only capital that matters is social capital. That's what matters, which is knowledge, information, connectivity, relationship, reference, that kind of stuff. Yes?
How would you prevent conflict between villages or tribes?
The last battle between the clan of the Shasta, whose territory we are sitting on, and the Dagilma, who were the other side of Lithia Park, took place in Lithia Park. Everybody was dressed to the hilt in their war paint. They approached each other, yelling and screaming and dancing, and as soon as someone was hurt, the question had been answered. Your side lost. Not lost, but the decision was made. In other words, war was actually a religious activity for deciding difficult decisions. You've got to go to that extent. You've got such a difficult decision that everybody has to get really fierce about it. And then you stage this event and the gods tell you what the answer is. You've got a broken leg. Okay, now let's eat. We answered the question. So that gets worked out ritualistically. And you've got meetings of elders and council, and you keep that knowledge. This is something we're really missing now, is the older people in America are just warehoused. They get rid of them instead of sitting here with us and telling us stuff. And it's really, when you're young, your brain can really focus on being really good at something. As you get older, what you get good at is connecting information. What actually happens in your brain as you get older is your neurons get more and more insulation around them, and so your communication internally is faster. Not your talking. Your thinking is faster, and it's wider, because the bundle of nerves between the two halves of your brain get really good. So what older people can do is metaphoric thinking. You can tell them this story and they can immediately tell you, oh, that's connected to that. And you would have never thought of it. But an older person can go, oh yes, of course, that's such and such. Let me tell you this story about. So it's really interesting how we need to learn how amazing the human being is. And what you can do for us that's super special, and what I can do for you that's super special. And it's about learning who we are and what we are. And we've been made into machines instead of humans. And there's this opportunity to be humans and to be as much as we can humans.
Yes, Tom, I just want to add to what you were saying, which is, it seems in my own mind, we're at this huge turning point of male dominant thinking to female kind of relational nature. And so this gentleman's question about, well, how does that decision making change? The whole paradigm is so foreign to us that we really just sort of need to sit back and kind of see what that would be like, because there really aren't models other than possibly looking at bonobos or chimps or ancient cultures where there's little vestiges of this still operating.
There's great stuff out there.
When you speak of the council and the council of elders and the councils that different people are on, is that kind of like sociocracy consensus type of?
Yeah, it is. Now, we may have, that's a whole discussion. But I can tell you from my Quaker experience, the elders have more weight. It may appear that everything's being done in a very open way where everyone's participating, but things happen in councils where the weighty participants facilitate the right outcome. And it's done with love, it's done very gently, but it's manipulative. Or it's guidance. How do you want to call it, right? So I don't want to pretend that it is only anarchistic in that it's not hierarchical. It's horizontal. But it still depends on real truth and real knowledge. And one needs ways to know that, not just process a whole bunch of opinions. So again, I think those councils take place surrounded by their symbology, surrounded by their icons, so that they have those symbols always in their mind, always in their eyes, always in their ears. And they don't forget who they are. The deepest thing that I ever learned about First Nation healing practices is not this herb is good for this and this herb is good for that. It's if someone is sick, it's because they forgot who they were. And what you want to do is bring by their mother, their father, their relatives, their clan leaders, their mentors, and tell them their name. Give them back their name. And then they either die or they come back. But it's very different. It has to do with, well, are you here or aren't you here? And miracles happen that modern science cannot explain. When someone is brought back into culture and held. Like I said, it's December. The last people are coming down out of the high country. Parades, welcoming, ceremony. Hallelujah, so good to see you. We love you. Welcome back. I mean, that holding, it's so different than what we're in right now. But lots of us have, all of us have experienced, if only for moments, pieces of this. And when we experience those pieces, and maybe we know some elders or some history, we can go, oh, shit, that's how the Mohawks did it. Oh, okay, back up. Oh, I got back. Somebody's got my back here, you know, we're good. So there's nothing new to be invented here. It's about putting the world back together. The world is broken. This landscape is broken.
Mm.
We know what to do. As a permaculturalist, I don't have to invent anything. I know what we can do. It's really straightforward. We just need to have the will to do it. Actually, we're going to have the opportunity to do this. it's coming to a location near you soon, and it's time for us to rise, I believe. I'm a little older than some of you. I need some rest once in a while.
Thank you all for coming. We have so
Thank you.
much.